Hey everybody, your old pal Shawn here. In this episode, we're going to talk about turning our lives around and getting on the path. But before we get started, if you like what we're doing, if you appreciate the messages we're putting out there, how to shift culture and shift consciousness, please leave a comment below. Like, subscribe, share this with as many people as possible because shifting cultures begins with shifting our consciousness, shifting our own lives. We can serve as an example and help move the world in a better direction. If you are financially in a good position, please consider checking out our givesendgo.com/SZP. Anything that comes in will go right back to the podcast towards production quality, maybe getting a better set, maybe getting editing, a little more support. All right, now let's get started. We've all gone through hard times. We've all struggled. Maybe you entered a new phase in life. Maybe you're in your teens and you don't know what to do. Maybe you lost a best friend. Maybe you had a falling out with a relative. Perhaps you entered a health crisis. Major struggle at work. As you've heard before on this channel, if you've been watching, life is difficult. We live in a world where betrayal, heartbreak, corruption, disease, pain, war, poverty, these are everyday realities. There is no escaping from pain. If you enjoy something, that's awesome. It's probably going to hurt if that ends, and it will one day. You could do everything right. You can spend your life building your reputation and honing your craft. You want your business to thrive, but then, the market shifts and your industry disappears. Just like that. You can do everything right, but pain is still coming your way. And as I've often said, growth is the only guarantee that life will get better because you will be better positioned to face whatever you encounter. We can't guarantee that you're going to find a partner of your dreams, that your business is going to become a multi-billion-dollar empire. We can't guarantee that the world is going to meet our whims. But what we can guarantee is the more you develop yourself, the more you will be able to face and manage the situations that come. There's a powerful role that we as a collective share in supporting change, doing things at a system-wide level, and there's much to do there. Today's not the episode for that because the system, the culture, the collective is made up of us, individuals on the path. And maybe you've been on it for a long, long time. Maybe you've taken a break, sit down by a tree, watch the river flow by. Or maybe you haven't started. Well, then this is the podcast for you. We're going to talk about getting on the path. And even if you've been on it for a long time, there's always a new step. First thing that you need to know about being on the path is it's not a straight line. And you always see farther than your feet have taken you. In other words, you always understand that there's more steps to go, more room for improvement, things that you need to do in order to get down that road. And this is important because sometimes people can be very hard on themselves when they go, I have so much yet to do. Well, so does everybody. Everyone knows what else lies ahead for them. And even if they don't know what steps to take, they realize that there are steps to take. There's always development that can be done. And that's okay. Don't be hard on yourself for this. For some folks who have a more positive outlook, this sounds like a no-brainer. But as someone who had a very, very negative outlook, these are words that I really needed to hear at one point, and I'm sharing them in case you or somebody that will listen to this could use those words as well. We always see farther down the path than we are. Now, I don't know what your situation is, what you'd like to change, what you'd like to improve, but I'm going to speak in generalities. First of all, I'm not a doctor, surgeon, psychologist, psychiatrist, therapist of any kind. I don't know you, and I can't adjust this to meet your specific needs. So everything I'm going to be saying in this episode is going to be general. Instead of very precise guidance, I'm going to speak in universal terms that will apply to everybody. Okay? First, let me tell you a story. I remember years ago as a teenager, I got my first girlfriend, and she was really cool. I was very fond of her, but I had a lot of personal insecurities, and I'd push her away, beg her to come back, push her away, beg her to come back, and you know what? After doing that 6 times, she figured I was a little too much for her, and that was the end of it. Now, so many of us go through some type of relationship heartache. Maybe you tried your hardest and you couldn't get them to stay. And you think, oh, I really blew it. Or what wasn't good? Why am I not good enough? Why is somebody else good enough? What did I do wrong? What is wrong with me that this doesn't work? And it may not be about you. Understand that this is not it can be a normal line of thinking, particularly if you've had a lot of pain in your life. This could be a very normal line of thinking, but it's not going to take you farther down the path. You see, I was struggling with that relationship for 9 years. And after we fully broke up the last time, I would say good solid 6 years of really trying to get better. But one of the things I didn't grasp was how I was making it worse. It hurts when a relationship that is important to you ends, or a job that you really enjoyed ends, or a friend moves away, or a loved one passes away. It hurts. A lot of these mechanics are familiar. There's a lot of similarities in these things. One thing is to pay attention to what's going on inside. I would spend so much time beating up on myself for it. I would say, oh, she was the only one. And if you're just listening, I'm holding one finger up. She was the only one, the only person in the universe who understood me, who could understand me. I'm so unique or odd or broken or weird. She's the only one who could accept me, and I ruined it. I wasn't good enough. There was something I didn't understand. I was too mean. I was too cold. I was too uncaring. I should have pushed her away. I should have been more caring or more nurturing. I should have understood her better. Insert your story here. I pushed the one person I could connect with away from me. I missed my chance at a soulmate, and now I'm going to be alone forever, and this person is gone, and I'm going to be alone because no one could ever connect with me like she did. Fate brought us together over and over again, and now and I ruined it. I'm so bad I ruined something destiny conspired to put together. And this was a lot of the type of story that I used. And when you're really fresh in the pain, you can remember so many details vividly. High def, IMAX screen. It's so clear, and the emotion is intense, and it's rich, and you relive the beautiful moments that you're never going to have again. And you relive all the horrible moments. And I remember seeing the words go across the screen, "I hate you, go away," which really was very difficult to read at that time. But this was long, long ago. When you're fresh in the pain, you you can remember every detail and clarity, and the emotion comes up, and often you might be tempted to relive the good moments, for instance, to wake up in the morning or go and think, "Oh, that person's so sweet. I love them so much." Or to go to bed and think, "Oh, she's so beautiful. She's the kindest, sweetest soul." And you can just connect at these deep levels. And this is how you condition yourself to fall in love and stay in love. You do this type of thing because early in the morning and when you're going to bed, your brain waves are operating at a slower level. You're not in the beta or high beta states that we are in during our active lives. You might be in alpha, which is a slower, more receptive state. You might even be in theta, which is kind of in between being awake and sleeping. And that's the state we actually spent a lot of our childhood in, especially the first 7 years or so. Because in that moment, we're very receptive. We don't know as much. So we have to take in a lot of information. And this is why they say kids pick up languages so quickly, because they're around and they have all the stimulus and they're just soaking it all in. They don't know how to function yet. So they're mirroring a lot of things and they're catching a lot of things. They're in a very receptive state. And then as we get older, we have more stress accumulate and we're in a more active state because we have more programs that help us interface with our environment. When we're younger, we don't have as many. We don't know the routines in every social situation. And all right, you're crossing a road. How do you do that? You're tying a shoe. You're climbing the stairs. How do you do that? With repetition, and often by watching and doing variations of what we've seen, this is how we learn. Well, when we first wake up and when we go to bed, we're in a similar type of state of receptivity. And when you're thinking about that person or that job you lost or, the injury you had or that fear you have, this is sinking deeper and deeper into your system. It's like you're hypnotizing yourself to feel shitty. And, you catch yourself throughout the day. Oh, I've been thinking of the person for so long. And then, you end up listening to The Cure or, uh, some of Taylor Swift's songs. And you're just, oh, man, the love of my life is gone. Or the job that I've always wanted fell through. Or I'm never going to be the athlete I was because I had this accident. And you're just reliving the horror. And you're training your body to be good at the horror, to be more efficient at feeling terrible. It's like lifting weights. Only the weight you're trying to lift, the muscles you're trying to strengthen are just making you feel shittier. So that can be a very disturbing process. So part one of really getting on the path after you realize there's work to do is to recognize, okay, well, I have to at least get on my side. Now, I don't believe in repression. I don't believe in pushing your emotions away, bottling them up, compartmentalizing, etc. I don't believe in that. However, when we are habitually, reflexively, spending inordinate amounts of our time reliving the past and beating ourselves up about a future that'll never come, or that we believe will never come, we're really making life hard for ourselves. We're making it. You could go to therapy every week, 1-2 hours a week, but if you're spending 14 hours a day adding shit to that pile, well, that pile's never going to go away. It's going to end up like a mountain. And that's something I didn't understand for those first 9 years when I was trying to process my emotions with my first girlfriend. The 3.5 off and on when we were together, and the following 6, it was just, I kept adding to it, and I couldn't get beyond it. And I idealized her instead of thinking about, okay, well, oh, she's so good. She has all these beautiful qualities. Well, we all have good qualities. No one is 100% good or 100% bad, but we will minimize any challenges or potential downsides a person has. And oh, and so beautiful and sweet and smart and funny and cute and understanding and blah, 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 blah. And we'll do this and we'll just tell a horrible story to ourselves over and over and over again. Well, I don't want you to do that because I did that and it sucks. I want you to have a more direct and less time wasting path. So, first thing to do is to become aware that you do this. Be very aware of, okay, every time I think about my injury, my health issue, I'll pivot this briefly to a health issue. I had a health situation back in 2019, early 2020, and I was experiencing all kinds of symptoms that I'm very aware of my body, and I had such anxiety over this. And of course, you go on WebMD and you got explosive murder AIDS, and every particle of the virus is spitting cancer cells at you and they transmit MS. Like, it's a terrible thing. You're just freaking yourself out. And I would run to the ER and they'd go, "Hey, Shawn, you're okay." And then right after, I would notice a new symptom. I'm like, fuck. If I thought to tell them about this new symptom, that might have led them to guide me somewhere else. And then we could have been farther along the path to treating this. And I was freaking myself out for months and months and months. In my case, it was a pretty substantial vitamin B deficiency. But, and vitamin D helped, and magnesium helped as well. But the reason I told you that is, when that's going on, you're checking and rechecking your symptoms. You go, "Oh God, I'm starting to feel inflammation pushing on my heart. Oh, now, I got numbness in my face. I'm shaking. Oh, yeah, my heart rate's going up. Jeez. Is my hair thinning to you? Oh God. Whew, man, my hands are getting numb." And one thing after another, you could freak yourself out. You could go in these self-destructive loops that are really going to make you very anxious. Well, you could do this emotionally with, say, a relationship as well. You could be driving, you could think, "Oh man, they're probably taking that new partner to that restaurant we went to. Oh, I wonder if it's," and then you see a car that vaguely looks like their car and you're freaking out. Ah! And then your song comes on and then, oh, you're so sad. And we have so many provoking moments just bringing this emotion up over and over again. So really the first step to getting on the path is to be aware that this is going to happen. That you have habits of thinking and focusing and talking about your difficult time. Now, again, if you're in a therapeutic setting, if you're journaling, if you're talking with a friend when you really are having a hard, if you're doing some therapeutic modality recommended to you by a trained professional, beautiful, beautiful, excellent. But if you're just going throughout your day dwelling on the worst things that ever happened to you, you're going to relive that worst day in your life over and every day for the rest of your life. And you don't want to do that. You want to feel better. So the first thing to do is to become aware of the fact that you do this. That you spend X amount of time focusing on the health of the relationship or the financial situation or an injury or job thing, whatever the case may be. So you're getting on the path. And when you do that, no problem. But let's shift our focus. Now I'm going to share with you a technique I got from the book. I think it's called PQ or Positivity Quotient, something like that. Or positive, I think the book's Positive Intelligence, but they talk about the positivity quotient. Anyway, the technique from this book, real simple, and you could do it with any of your senses, okay? I like, this is my favorite example though. So you take your fingers and you pay attention with all of your awareness that you are rubbing your fingers together and you feel the ridges on your fingers with elite sensitivity, become so aware. And you do this for a minute or two. And then from there, shift your focus to something you're grateful for. I would say, grateful that you can breathe, grateful that you have a job, or if you don't have a job, grateful that your heart's beating, that you are on the path to getting better. And don't just think, oh, I'm grateful, blah, 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 because that's part of it. You're having an intention, grateful for your cat, grateful for your shirt, grateful for it. Don't set the bar real high. I remember one of the people I met one time, he was talking about gratitude. And one of his clients said, well, I'm not grateful for anything. And he goes, well, how about your face? And the client goes, well, I don't like my face. I think I'm kind of ugly. And he goes, would you prefer not to have a face? And the person's like, well, no, I guess I'll take my ugly face. He goes like, good, be grateful that you actually have one. Now, I always thought that was kind of like not the most friendly technique, but it lowers the bar to almost for that anyone could reach it. Grateful that you learned to tie your shoe, grateful that you could breathe, grateful for any number of things. And from there, focus on it and breathe and desire to feel grateful. Desire to feel grateful. And it might be very, very dull, very almost non-existent in the beginning. That's okay. You're not lying to yourself and pretending that you're grateful. You're going to the gym and building the muscle of gratitude, for instance. Now, don't expect perfection with this, okay? Gradually, as you begin to notice, oh, I was thinking about my issue, my ex, my job, my fitness, whatever. As I was thinking about that, I really struggled. I've missed it a couple of times. That's okay. This process, it's going to be, one step forward, two steps back, one step forward, three steps back, one step forward, two steps back for a while. And then every now and then, two steps forward, one step back, two steps forward, one step back, three steps forward, five steps back. And it's going to be messy. That's okay. Little by little, you're going to learn to interrupt the negative feelings that you're habitually producing and training yourself to be better at feeling, and gradually building a new emotion of appreciation. Now, let me give you an example. I remember I was in a very dark spot, 2009, 2010. Particularly the beginning of 2010, the first 4 or 5 months or so. And I was trying to get better. And I had more of an understanding of a lot of these mechanisms. So I was trying to get better. And I didn't know about interrupting emotions and such at that time. But I was doing an approach. I had a phrase that I would repeat that would remind me to feel love. I was trying to feel more love in my life at that time. And I was just trying to do it all day. So I would go to work and I would drive and I would modify displays at various stores. And then I would just keep repeating this in my mind. So I remembered, okay, focus on love, feel love, feel love. Want to desire to feel love, loving all things. Everything is love, 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 love. And I would focus on this. And this sounds really hokey, but I was so used to feeling terrible um, that I wanted to train and make a big shift. And my habit was heavily focused on, well, this person's to blame and I'm to blame and the situation is this and that. And I just really wanted to feel better. And initially what I felt was actually like a sadness and an anger. And I allowed myself to feel some kind of a hatred came out. I felt a cold hatred come out of my solar plexus. And I just had a very unpleasant thoughts about some people who were involved in my life. But that I never really allowed myself to feel anything negative about. So that was some type of catharsis. And then I kept doing my practice. And weeks went by until I had my first good day where I didn't feel shitty all day. And those were a rough couple of weeks. But I had a good day. And then a few days go by and then I had another good day. And a few days went by and then I had another good day. And then pretty soon I had a good week. And then it became a good month. And then I had trained myself and strengthened this enough that I was really in this explosive, massive sense of bliss all the time. And along with that, I was doing another technique to address the pain that was still in my system. But doing that really made a difference by allowing myself the wiggle room to make mistakes, to heal, to understand that I'm not going to be good at it. I was treating it like a martial arts technique. You know, some days I'll have higher quality repetitions and some days I'll have worse. That's okay. I'm on the path. I'm trying to get better. And little by little, I did get better. You see, when you go through a hard time, particularly if you're a more negatively inclined person, so what might happen is you normally feel negative, and then you get a good job, you get a cool relationship, you get something, and then you get this high, and it elevates you above it, and like, oh yes, I'm so good, everything's fantastic, la-di-da, beautiful, beautiful, and then for some reason, that goes away, and then from the contrast of feeling good to the low feels even lower. And then you have the sense of what's lost. And then on top of that, you probably beat up on yourself. I messed this up. I'm so dumb. I'm too weak. I didn't know enough. I wasn't good enough. I didn't care. And you do that, and then you can really exacerbate the pain. Now, it's normal to feel pain when something you like goes away, or when something you really invested in didn't work out, or any number of difficult situations that can happen in our lives. It's normal. But it's not productive to self-abuse because of it. And what we're doing with this first step is training yourself to stop contributing to the pain. You're gonna hurt. Stop contributing to the pain. And begin to steer the direction that you want to go with a new, more positive feeling. Gratitude's an easy one to understand. And then you can begin to, first thing when you wake up, last thing when you go to bed, you're thinking about gratitude, you're thinking about something positive. And then you do this and you're heading down the path to feeling better. That's a major point. And then you can do this with every emotion that you have, every pain that you have, and I'm not saying you're never going to feel angry, these are natural things that happen. But if you're habituated to training yourself into feeling worse and worse and worse because an event happened, or because there was information you didn't have, or there was a mistake, that's not going to take you into the direction you want. You're just poisoning your nervous system with the chemistry of misery, essentially. Well, why would you want to do that? You probably don't. So when you begin to train yourself to break those habits and focus on something positive, gratitude, something you succeeded at. Maybe you had a good report card as a kid. Maybe you did something in the talent show as a kid. Maybe you learned to tie your shoes. Maybe you learned a new skill at work. And gradually you can begin to condition yourself to become more aware of the things you do well, and or the things you have succeeded in. And this is going to give you a more robust sense of self-worth, self-trust. And that will also act as a shield eventually for when somebody's angry at you and they can say, oh, you're a terrible person. And you have the receipts of all the good things you've done. Not that you've never made a mistake, not that you never got mad and said something that you regretted, but that you're actively on the path and you've made great strides to being a better person. Well, that's not a bad person. This is how you begin to build a more robust psychology. So initially, after the final breakup with my girlfriend, the first 3 years we had our issues, and then the 6 following, it took a long time for me to process that. And then I had a lot more stuff going on, a lot more pain, but I understood the mechanics a little better. The next time I had a heartbreak of high magnitude, I got through that in about a year. And then since then, everything might be few weeks where I might be tempted to think about, oh, how what could have been, our plans that we had that never worked out. And you just get faster and faster. That year of that second instance ended in 2010. That was early 2010. So that was a long time ago. As you get better at this, as you begin to understand the mechanisms involved, there becomes a bit less stress in your life because you're not adding to the stress. Yeah, again, life hurts. There will always be things that we don't like. But we can stop contributing to them. And we can start moving in a better direction. And this one simple technique begin to shift you powerfully. Now, what's the next step? Well, the next step is, there's more stuff inside. Pick your therapeutic modality. There are different somatic practices. You have breath work. You have journaling practices. You have different things you can do with someone who's trained. Look online. There are tons of these things. The one that's appropriate for you might vary. If I knew you, maybe I could help you take a guess to find one that would be appropriate, but I'm not going to do that in this video. Too much variation. But then there's also the physical steps of improving. And a lot of times that means, okay, now physically, my business fell through. All right, what can I do to recover financially? What can I do to improve our marketing or or test our idea better? Or, if it's a health thing, all right, what modality can I do to begin to regain my mobility or strength? What are some of the different types of experts I could consult? Who's really skilled with this kind of thing? And you can begin to direct your attention to finding these answers. And yes, you could pop it in a search engine or AI. And those are becoming very powerful tools. I would encourage you also to do some of the groundwork yourself and look, because sometimes you might come up with a phrase, you might discover in the process of phrasing or a term that you didn't know before that can guide you farther down the path. So allow yourself some room for exploration on that. Often there are many situations in life that can seem so big. Like you think you'll never get over this. And when you do, your great war story, when you look back, is less troubling than what you had for breakfast a couple of years ago. I remember some of the events that were more difficult in my life. When I would look back on them, I could quote every minute. It was like quasi-photographic memory with high emotional association with every second of my life. And I would just stack up every moment and everything I did wrong and every way people betrayed me or whatever. And I would just feel terrible. Now, when I go through those, I can recall them. Once in a while, I'll get a whiff of a feeling about something, but they're not important anymore. These heartbreaks that I thought I would never get over. Oh, I'm so into this girl or this job or this position or this thing I'm doing. Oh, I'm leaving this group of people or this pastime. And I would think, oh, it's so huge. Years later, when the initial emotions are worked through, it does not seem that large. Now, for encouragement, that I'm going to talk about some other aspects of being on the path. Let's talk about hatred, for instance. Now, this could be self-hatred, which I had a lot of. This could be hatred towards other people, which I had a lot of. I would say hatred was an expertise of mine because until I was 33-ish, that was my primary. Well, I'll back that off a little bit, but that was my primary feeling about myself. Because there were so many things that I thought were terrible and I needed to do something about it. And any limitation I had was a hint that I couldn't do something about it. And so I would hate myself for it. And also I wanted to be a good person and I would see dark inclinations inside. I'm like, well, a good person wouldn't have these. And I'd hate myself for it. And one of the things where people make a mistake when they're trying to solve hatred in themselves, towards a group, a person, doesn't matter, is they often try and have too big of a change at one time. Now, I know I gave you a pretty extreme example earlier of something I did earlier on my path, but now that I'm farther along, I understand that most of the time, people say, oh, you're going to go from hatred. Well, you just go to love because love's the opposite. Yeah, I'm going to love. And as soon as you do that, you encounter all the evidence that that's not true. You go, well, no, I don't like this person. I don't like their activity. I don't like where they go. I don't like the way they look at me. I don't like the way they talk. I don't like their tone of voice. I don't like their neighborhood. Their whole viewpoint drags society to end. You could go into a really dark spiral with all this. But that's too big of a chasm to leap much of the time. What I found works for every person that really took this seriously, that I know of personally, is don't try and love something. That's ridiculous. That's way too much. Especially, if you're looking at yourself and you have qualities that you don't like, or you have things that you're really angry that you did. Well, don't try and kill it. Don't try and change it. Don't try and forgive it. Don't try and push it away. Don't try and love it. All that's too much. Start with the minimum step. Can I ease the reflex of attacking myself when I look at this thing, when I think about this thing I did? Or when I look at this group and think about some bill they passed, something they said, can I just ease the reflex of attacking myself or them, whatever the target may be? Can I just look at it? Can I just feel what I'm feeling and just ease the reflex to talk shit on them, to look away, to hate, to just ease? I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying forgive it. I'm not saying love it and hold it on high. All I'm saying is get to the point where you can look at it. And when you can look at it, and it's going to take some practice. I'm not lying to you on this. It's going to take some real practice and determination. But it goes along with the first steps in this episode. Ease your reflex to attack. That goes along with my advice for ending division in the world. Begin by looking at people on the other side who represent a lot of the mainstream and watch 3 episodes of each of the people I named and follow them, and once in a while watch another clip. And you do that and you ease the reflex to attack, to hate, to make fun of, to turn it off, to ease that reflex. Once this is established, naturally, gradually, a more positive association will come up. It might be something like tolerance. Now, that doesn't mean you tolerate injustice or bad behavior, but psychophysiologically, you're tolerating the state of reality. You're not going to be in conflict with reality. And from there, it might evolve to appreciation or gratitude, or maybe some type of compassion that they have this mindset, whatever. But start with just being able to ease the reflex to attack. And once you can succeed with this regularly, you're going to notice your feelings and your relation to it naturally mature and evolve. And you might eventually love people who disagree with you. That doesn't mean that you condone their behaviors. That don't mean you think their suggestions for legislation are correct. But it means you recognize that they're part of the human family. And if you disagree, you'd like to be on the same page. You would like them to be on a less destructive path. And you might still work against their agenda or their law or their goals, but root for the best in that person to eventually come out. Well, that can happen with self-hatred. In my case, for example, I wanted to be this good person, but I saw inside a lot of dark tendencies that I recognized from when I was very, very little. And I thought, well, a good person wouldn't have any of these. And in one of the groups I was affiliated with, I would get these highfalutin titles, and people would say, "Oh, you're so this, you're so evolved, you're so wise," and I eventually got the impression that, well, maybe they see something that I don't. I'm hearing it from so many people, and I started to play the role of, oh ho ho, yes, look at me, bow, and really not the case. It was eventually coming to grips with being able to see some of these qualities and not attack them. Eventually they transmuted. Eventually I found ways, like some of the aggression that I found, I could channel that into determination, into styles of dress, into exercise, into difficult circumstances. Every characteristic that I found that I did this process with, I eventually found a way to bring it back and make it part of who I am. Well, when we're watching these people engage in cultural scale issues, we're seeing them. We're initially seeing things that we probably don't like. You ease the reflex to attack. You could begin to humanize them. You see, oh, well, they have their issue, their ideas. They're not evil. They might be wrong. They might be ignorant. They might be coming from the wrong place. They might be misinformed, but they're not evil. Well, that's a big step from evil. And then you can work on that. And you can begin to integrate some of their ideas in your communication so you can address their concerns. So you can speak to their fears and their insecurities. And that's going to make your arguments more compelling to them because you're speaking their language. You're addressing them as people that you care about and not some abominable other that's over there. Whatever circumstances you find yourself on, you need to get on your side. You need and really take it seriously and understand that it's going to be messy. But with patience, with kindness, we can begin to move through. One more thing I'm going to talk about regarding this hatred thing. I've worked with some people who had many decade-long issues and very, very, very severe traumas. Some things that are interesting. At certain points in the process, memory might come up of some long ago made decision, maybe from childhood. And then sometimes you might see, oh, I always had this pain in my jaw, and now the jaw is gone forever. Not the jaw itself, the pain in the jaw is gone forever. Or in your hips, or tension in your shoulders maybe. Or, sometimes I've seen people when they're trying super hard to do something, but they're also fighting themselves and holding back and restraining. And it's like they got their foot on the gas and the foot on the brakes at the same time. And, you do this for a long time, you burn a lot of energy, you stress yourself the fuck out. You can make the right shifts, and all of a sudden, your energy levels start to recover. This is very interesting to consider. But there can, in my view, and this might be controversial to some, but your biology is the foundation that your psychology is built on. Your body is the physical representation of all of your subconscious. You are made of everything you do. That includes your thoughts, words, actions, and behaviors, your habitual feelings. And when you begin to work on these things, you could be pretty surprised on how much can change for you at different levels. Now, I'm not promising any cures or any kind of thing like that, but I'm saying sometimes very interesting things happen, and sometimes things beyond ourselves. And this takes us into the last thing I want to talk about, which is forgiveness. Now, forgiveness, it's a concept that a lot of people struggle with because there is true injustice in the world. There is great evil that is done. There are horrendous things that happen. And forgiveness doesn't mean that those things are good. Forgiveness doesn't mean you don't try and stop injustice. All forgiveness means is you find a way to get your psychophysiological system to stop storing stress and chemistry about your disagreement with the event. It does not mean that you agree. It doesn't mean that if someone's breaking the law or committing injustice that you don't try and serve justice, that you don't try and get authorities involved or report somebody or whatever the case may be. But it means that your psyche, your body, your heart and mind, you're not retaining an imprint of anger or frustration about that. Yeah, it'd be good if they apologized. Yeah, it'd be good if they changed. Yeah, it'd be even better if they never did the thing at all. But we don't have a say on that. And to continually poison your body because of something someone else did, well, that's not the most functional thing to do. And one of the things that's very interesting is and forgiveness starts to become more natural as you go through these processes that we talked about. Forgiveness after you find a very low base level of pain, after you've relieved a lot of the negative imprints of your personal history, when you're generally calm and in a healthy state, when you're not in physical pain, when you're not burnt out, forgiveness is an easier thing that happens. Naturally, it begins to arise, and you might see, okay, these people here, they're my brothers, my sisters, my extended human family, and they're doing the things that make the most sense to them. But this is a logical reason, and that the body does not care about your logical reason. Once in a while, that might make it through, but your body is still going to hold on. But when you're seriously incorporating the ideas that have been shared throughout this episode, you'll find that the body can become more pliant and more open to processing these things. And there are different ways to go about it. A lot of people like to do journaling, and they'll reflect on how what happened in objective detail, how they felt about it, how they contributed to it, how they could make sure not to contribute that way again should they find themselves in a similar circumstance. A lot of times people hold on to emotions because they hurt, And by maintaining an awareness of them, by holding on to that, there's an extra level of vigilance, of preparedness for a threat. But if you can get the mind, get the body, get the whole psychophysiological unit to calm and arrive at a place where it recognizes that such suffering can really hurt you, and that people's confusion shouldn't get you to stress yourself out, and that being angry at yourself or holding on to anger about a person isn't going to undo the actions. You start to have changes, and something really interesting. When you go through a deep process of forgiveness, sometimes, I've seen this with myself several times, I've seen it with other people in very dramatic instances. Sometimes that person might show up again in your life. I had 2 instances where somebody I hadn't talked to for a year left on bad terms. I went through a process of forgiveness, and then the next day they reached out to me and they were apologizing and trying to make amends and improve terms. Well, that's pretty cool. I've seen it where people would go through and it's not a one night process. A lot of times it's the side effect of doing all the things we're talking about. But in going through this, it's very therapeutic, and they often find that, hey, that person ended up reaching out and getting in touch, even if there was no way that person could know. It's very interesting. I'm not going to go into any metaphysical discussion on what's happening there, but try it and see for yourself. When you take seriously the idea of getting on the path, of working through everything with patience and perseverance, you will notice many changes in your life, in what you live, in what you're experiencing. Internally and externally. When you are committed to changing your life, amazing things can happen. When you're arriving at deeper and deeper levels of calm and low stress and presence, there's a certain level of awakening and discovery and release that begins to happen in your system. You know, for example, a lot of somatic therapeutic practices, the way they do it is they'll put you in a position where you feel very, very safe. So, for example, you might be in a fetal position, very solid on the ground, and through certain breathing exercises, through certain, mild stretching, twisting, the body might let go of certain emotions. If you look for different videos, you'll find sometimes also there'll be poses where they'll put you again in a very, very relaxed position, but very open. Maybe your hips are open, maybe your chest is open, and breathe. And when that happens, it begins to stretch the fascia, and the breathing begins to move the peptides and the shit that's in your system. And your body can begin to process some of the things that it was holding on to that it hadn't for a while. Now, I don't know all the science behind it. I know like fragments and bits and pieces, but it's very cool. One of the reasons why this works is, and often in some of these modalities, when you're engaging in it with people, there might be 2, 3, 4 people touching you at the time, and in appropriate ways, of course. But all of the contact often helps the body feel very, very, very safe and very warm. And the contact releases some positive chemistry. And when they're moving through some of these open positions and that are also very relaxed, it can begin to get parts of ourselves moving. And there can be emotional releases, there can be discoveries, there can be memories coming up that you haven't had for a long time. I remember I was doing a practice not too long ago, and then I remembered something from 10th grade where I turned in my textbook, but I didn't sign off on it at the end of the year, and someone must have grabbed my textbook, and so I got charged for the book like I stole it. And I didn't. I had no reason to. I was the first one to turn it in because I couldn't wait to get it out of my book bag and stop carrying that big, heavy fucking thing. And I had forgotten about this. That was 24 years ago. But it just came up. I was in a position, I was breathing, and all of a sudden hit this deep, relaxed state, and stuff starts to come out. And there are many therapeutic modalities like this. Jungian active imagination, for example, can be very powerful with this kind of thing. And I'm not going to list every modality that can be used. I mean, many people use hypnotic principles and whatnot. But they all rely on the same thing, getting into deep enough states of relaxation, maybe getting the breath involved, maybe using symbols or something. But one way or the other, you're lowering the base level of tension so that you could work on the inner mechanisms. And these are all different practices that can help you on the path. And you can explore this with experts if you'd like. But the first thing is remember, hey, don't be hard on yourself. We're all on the path and we all see farther than we're at. Our feet haven't taken us there. We realize there's more to do. And the next thing is like, hey, just realize, step one, here's a pattern I have. I'm going to work through that. I'm going to recognize it, interrupt it, and replace it with something that's going to take me in a better direction. And I'm going to keep doing this until everything's better. And when I see things I don't like, I'm not going to abuse myself for them. I'm not going to attack myself or others for them. Instead, find some way to not attack while being in the presence of things you don't like. And be open. And see what you can discover there, because there's often something very fruitful. Along that way, you can transmute a lot of hatred into something positive. And whether you're consciously trying to do it or not, you end up on a path of forgiveness and deep healing, where you can begin to see people as, guess what? People. And change your life for the better. And the more people who do this, the better off the world will be. That doesn't mean we don't call out injustice or stand up for what's important to us. It just means we get on the path to recognizing ourselves as someone who has value and everyone else is part of our extended human family. And to start appreciating and enjoying life. That doesn't mean that there won't be hardship. That doesn't mean that there won't be pain. But what it does mean is you'll learn not to contribute to the pain. You'll learn not to magnify the pain. And if there is some way to gain insight or character development or experience through the pain or the mistakes or the hardship or the betrayals, you can make it. You'll be able to find it. And that can become your next step on the path. We like to imagine that it's just one straight road. But little do we know, we end up on all these many side quests. We end up finding, we have a deficiency or lack of understanding or mistake, and we end up going on a side quest that sends us in an entirely different direction on some kind of tangent that we didn't plan on, but we go through there, and eventually we loop back to where we came from maybe, and all of a sudden we're better equipped to face the challenges ahead. As long as you have patience, as long as you are willing to persevere, and as long as you follow some of the guidelines laid out in this episode, you will be on the path. And you might find modalities or techniques that worked for you before don't work now. Okay, maybe now is not the time for them. Maybe you have to learn something new. Maybe you'll find certain things don't work for you now, but in a few years, they're going to be very valuable when you gain more insights that can make those applicable to you. Give yourself the freedom to make mistakes, to discover, to explore the path ahead. No matter where you're at, I understand it could be very dark. But if you're not on your side, life's going to be much harder than it has to be. And life is hard as it is. But if you get irrefutably, unstoppably on your side, you can find a way. There is no easy button. There is no express lane to an easy life. But there is a path, and you're already on it. So start walking. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Please remember to like, share, comment, follow. Until next time, rock on, party on. This is Shawn, signing out.